ensayas rápido, no te sabes poner pie. Lo ensayas rápido, no te sabes poner pie.
Welcome back to Civil Discourse Now. He's Paul Ogden.
And I'm Mark Small.
This is June 30th, 2012. We've been discussing matters of student debt, student loans, finance of education. There was controversy the last couple of weeks. The University of Virginia, the chancellor resigned in a dispute over online education. The Board of Friends at the University of Virginia was pushing the idea of having more.
And the Board of Friends is like a board of trustees or regents or
yes, and they wanted to push more online education, presumably to cut overhead. And she resigned, saying that that was not appropriate, that she felt that the university's job was to teach people and teach them live. And sure, you can use stuff, I don't know if she said this, but you can certainly augment the regular program that the school has with online courses, but the emphasis should be on live teaching. I know Purdue, 25% of the students at Purdue in West Lafayette, according to what I read a couple of weeks ago in a local newspaper, said that 25% of students there take courses online. So, yeah, it is an aspect of it, but then students are prey to these for-profit schools.
Yes, they are. And a lot of the student loan debt that we're talking about today is involved in running up that debt to go to these private schools.
Yeah, and we're not talking about private schools like Harvard or DePauw or Princeton or something like that, but we're talking about
Franklin College.
That's not Franklin College.
No, Franklin University. I'm sorry.
They're
not Franklin College.
They're online schools that, I mean, they advertise heavily on TV.
Phoenix University,
which has a great football draft school, whatever.
Yeah.
But they advertise heavily. They have low graduation rates, like 20% graduation rate, and 80%. I mean, these are generally. I'm talking about the category. They generally have high default rates on student loans, and people are sitting there at home. They think, well, I'm going to study at home on the computer or online. Well, no, they don't. They end up playing video games, and there's no real impetus for them to study, and people aren't in touch with them and getting them to go. And part of college, especially undergrad, is acculturation and learning to be around people and learning about life.
Yeah, and I've taught at the college level almost nonstop since 1987. Usually, one class a semester, and I can't imagine. It's hard enough to get students committed to coming to class. If you had them online and you were wanting them to tune in, that might be more difficult.
Well, and I'm not with a course you would teach, Paul. I think that would be very fascinating.
Other professors, I'm sure.
So, what do you say to students, prospective college students especially, about what they should do before they go to college?
Oh, I'm glad you asked it, Mark. I ran across an interesting article. And it was the publication. It was in the NASDAQ, some kind of NASDAQ publication. But it has 5 tips for. It says here are 5 ways you can improve the payback on your investment in student and other educational expenses. Check out your job prospects. This is before you decide to get into this particular area. Understand the demand in your area. Now, those are 2 that I think hit home when it comes to the practice of law. If you go out and talk to not law professors, let me clarify. You go out and talk to lawyers, they will talk to you, especially younger lawyers, about what it's really like in the profession. You get a completely different story if you go to law school and they ask, oh, what am I going to make when I get out? And they're going to say, oh, you're going to make $75,000 a year, and you're going to be employed within 9 months, and things like that. So check job prospects, understand the demand in your area, research your financial aid opportunities. Make sure you pursue a relevant degree. You and I may disagree on that. Consider spending a year working before going to college. Those
Okay.
are just some of the recommendations.
I'm going to disagree with several of those.
I'm sure you will.
Okay, first of all, if somebody's going to college, it's not necessarily because they just want to get a job. Part of the importance of college is learning how to think, how to be a human being. That's part of what a liberal arts education is about. A person could go to college, have no idea what they want to do for a career, and after 4 years, come out of school and be excellent at whatever it is that they do.
Art history.
Well, could be. I mean, we need PhDs in anthropology. I think Steve Jobs said that at Stanford. Or if you look at Tom Binford, was CEO of several corporations here in Indianapolis. I think he was a history major at Princeton. Liberal arts undergraduate degrees can be of great value because college can teach people how to think. So when you're lining up all these things about thinking about a school for job prospects, that's something that I think isn't always the case. When it comes to looking at schools in terms of financial aid packages, that's different because different schools have different sized endowments, and you can go to a school that on paper looks really expensive, but in reality, because you're accepted there and they want you as a student, you get a lot of financial aid, and it's not student loan debt. I think another thing you have to look at is whether you're going to incur student loan debt, and people shouldn't. If there's any way of avoiding a student loan, look at, research as much as possible what assistance is available to you, because there are scholarships that go unclaimed and there are fellowships that go unclaimed that people can get access to that they don't know about. A particular school can have a scholarship program that a family has set up, for example, and nobody applies. If you go online and you check that out, you might find that's available. Don't pay anybody to help you find out how to get financial aid, because that's money you could be paying to the college. You just want to go and do the research to find out what funds are available.
Yeah, I think people need to know the effect of their future in running up debt to go to school. And so many of these, and I keep going back to the law school example, these people going to Indiana Tech or Valparaiso, these are private schools, they end up with $100,000 in debt. That's a pretty big mortgage payment. Were it mortgage payment, it'd be a pretty big mortgage payment for someone just coming out who doesn't even have a job lined up.
Valpo's a good school. But Indiana Tech is not yet accredited by the ABA. So,
well, that's another thing too. I'm not sure those people going there, they're assuming they're going to be accredited.
Yeah, and there are only a couple of states. I know California is one of them, but there are only a couple. And I think it only allows people to sit for the bar exam if they've graduated from a law school in California, and it doesn't have to be accredited. But if you graduate from a non-ABA accredited law school, your options are sharply limited in what you can do. And in Indiana, you have to graduate from an ABA accredited law school to sit for the bar. So just because you're going to a law school in Indiana, Indiana Tech, if they open up, doesn't mean that you can even sit for the bar exam here in this state.
Right. I think where you and I disagree on is, I think going to college, I think there's a degree of truth in what you say about people need to learn to think logically and to interact with other people. But at the end of the day, it's got to be about a job. And I think that's what going to college is about. Improving your job prospects when you come out.
I understand how some people would be looking at job prospects. I think classically, though, people, especially in terms of liberal arts, would go to college to not just to think logically, but to learn how to think and to be able to process information. St. John's in Annapolis, Maryland, and Santa Fe, New Mexico. It has 2 campuses. The first year students study philosophy and history by reading, and math and science by reading the ancient Greeks and Romans. and then by the time that they graduate, they're reading contemporary philosophers and scientists. And the undergraduate degree is viewed as a means of achieving personhood, and then graduate school is looked upon as someplace where you finally hone what you do. But when people go to college, a lot of times that 1 year, saying, well, stay out a year before you go to college, that 1 year is a formative year.
Yeah, and I should point out, I'm not sure I agree with that, because people who sit out for 1 year, they mean, let's say they're smart enough and able to go to college, that may, sitting out a year may be a year that knocks them out of ever going.
Yeah, and also you're behind a year from your peers. When
Yeah.
someone comes in that's being out a year, they're not in sync with the other people who are freshmen together. And I'm not talking about cliques. You're not in with our clique. It's just you haven't been freshmen together. You're dumped into a dorm room, and you don't know your roommate like we were. Although I guess now there's like some selection process for roommates. So you're sitting there staring at somebody you've never met before. You don't even know who they are. You have to learn how to be roommates with one another. And sometimes that doesn't work out, and sometimes it does. But it's learning how to live with other people in a close setting. Undergraduate and college, military and prison. Those are the only three institutions I can think of that kind of have that quality to it.
Right. So, I think people need to research before they. I would caution people not to listen completely to colleges and universities who are trying to sell people on signing up for education.
Yeah, they're selling you on education in a way that somebody else will try and sell you a car.
But you are skeptical of the car salesman.
Yeah, and actually, car salesman, you got something in there, and you can do research on the car because you've got all these Carfax and things online. Car dealers, normally, they're coming across and giving you the product and talking about what it really is.
But people aren't skeptical of admissions offices
No.
at these universities, and they should be. But they aren't, unfortunately. So
Yeah, so going back to the beginning of the show, first of all, what I would say in terms of the $1 trillion in debt, bag it. Let the banks eat it. They've got our $7 million. Let's take or $7 trillion. Let's take $1 trillion of it back. It's going to go local. Secondly, anybody who lets a college student have a credit card, they deserve to have that debt discharged. I'm sorry, I can't believe anybody would actually do that, and they deserve anything they get. Third, we should have free public education for higher education. In one way or another, if a student is qualified to pursue a doctorate in anthropology, medicine, law, engineering, then that person, if they're capable and talented enough to do it, that's our infrastructure. We should be willing to pay for it. We should have public schools available for that.
So once again, Mark, you're taking the socialist approach to a topic, and this time education.
No, I actually have very libertarian views. I think all drugs should be legalized.
Oh.
Students, as they're pursuing that education, can,
Yeah.
but they can't
And
just.
of course, once again, Mark, you're wrong this week.
No, I'm right, but this has been a pleasant discussion. Paul Ogden and I have been here sitting here talking about student debt, student loans. Paul, it's been a pleasure as always. Next week we're going to be talking about the smoking ordinance.
I look forward to it.
That'll be a lot of fun. So thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.